Okay, so let's take a look at the interactive notebook stipulations for the EDUC 4309 interactive notebook slash portfolio. And if you've done this in a previous course, which this is a almost identical assignment asked of students who have completed the EDUC 3310 Special Populations course or our Teaching to Diversity course, except there's a slight variation because this is aligned obviously to a set of different standards for Texas teachers. But if you'll look, I'm going to use the red dot here. If you'll look, this paragraph really just kind of organizes and explains what it is that the interactive notebook should look like, or the rationale behind it and the way to organize it. The obviously the clearer the notebook is arranged and organized, then the better information is conveyed to whomever the reader may be. The stipulations really are outlined here 1 through 4. So to begin with, you need to give me a little bit of information about you, your professional goals. If you want to include your teaching philosophy, that's fine. So some more information about you. Don't want to get carried away with it because that's not necessarily the focus of the notebook. Number 2, and this helps with organization, are the table of contents. So you'll list at least probably 8 items in your table of contents, and you may have a conclusion. You may want to put your philosophy at the end of your interactive notebook slash portfolio, and I like to kind of use those interchangeably. An interactive notebook really is different than a portfolio. However, for our purpose, we're going to kind of consider them both very similar. The 8 artifacts, this is different because in the past you've done 10 artifacts. And the 8 artifacts, let me spend a little time with that. Throughout the course, and if this is the online 6-week course, you don't have as much time, you've been assigned to a 30-hour observation. And the 30-hour observation is quintessential in regards to helping develop or identify these different artifacts. Now, you're looking for artifacts that, quite frankly, align with elements from these different standards. So your step 1 really is to become very familiar. You're becoming very familiar with the different standards that are associated with this particular course. And I like to, they're also program outcomes. So they're standards that are developed by the Texas Education Agency, but they're also really program outcomes that we've adopted for our program here at Dallas Christian College. So they really serve 2 purposes. And that's your first step, is to become familiar with these different learning outcomes and standards before you start to identify artifacts that might be related to those standards. And it might be very healthy to have a notebook with these different standards or this set of stipulations for this interactive notebook handy and with you when you're doing field observations so that you can acquire as many artifacts as you can. You know, I'm asking you to submit an interactive notebook slash portfolio with only 8 artifacts, but if you collect 16, that gives you perhaps a better qualitative choice when it comes to bringing an artifact into your portfolio or notebook and aligning it to one of the standards. Moving to the last page, and again, this should be very familiar. These are the writing prompts for you to unpack the standards and align the artifacts to those standards. So let me explain a little bit about the difference between 1, 2, and 3. 1 is where you're just simply describing the artifact. Matter of fact, some artifacts will have a description very similar to this stipulations page, explaining or describing the artifact in the beginning, which is the first paragraph that I essentially circled with the red dot. Is it's describing this activity when you may have an artifact that does the exact same thing. If you do, then you already have help with step 1 in unpacking that artifact. Now here you don't have to connect it with anything. It's a matter of this is the artifact and this is how it was used in context. Looking at 2, You provide a rationale for the artifact. This is where you're linking the artifact to the actual standards. So you'll notice that I'm giving you a little bit of an example of how to cite those standards within this particular rationale. Now, there are a lot of students who really get these 2 and 3 mixed up in a really standard way of checking to make sure that you have 2 as a rationale and 3 as a true reflection. Think of it as this. 2, you're writing everything in third person. In other words, the teacher and the artifact did these things, and this is how they're related to the standards. Or the experience led to this activity. Or in other words, you're never using a first person writing element in addressing number 2. Whereas number 3 is the exact opposite. 3 is more your experience. What did you absorb? What did you integrate? What do you plan on to integrate in the future? I always say think in terms of what happened, what's happening, and what could happen. So that's a true reflection as to where, and this would be where you would link it to your text or scholarly writing. So the citations that are found in step 2 are those that are linked to the standards, whereas the citations found in step 3 are those that are linked to written material that you would have used or accessed in order to unpack that standard. So that really summarizes the stipulations for this particular assignment. If you have any questions, you can certainly email me at bhorn@dallas.edu, and we can walk through whatever questions you may have, generate a dialogue about maybe what is a specific difference between 2 and 3, work through it, work through the different steps and reread it, and then if it starts to sound like you've addressed step 3 and step 2, maybe come see me and we'll walk through what's the difference. So hopefully you will really take advantage of this opportunity, because this is something that could really help you integrate classroom management pieces in your own classroom. So good luck with it, and learn a lot.